Jamie Lee Curtis, Hollywood royalty turned scream queen turned Oscar-winning icon, has captivated audiences for nearly 5 decades. At 67 years old, she stands as one of the most versatile actresses of her generation, with films grossing over $2.5 billion at the box office. But the woman who made us scream in Halloween and laugh in True Lies has lived a life more devastating than any script, a childhood marked not by privilege, but by abandonment, a brother lost to heroin at 23, a secret 10-year addiction that nearly destroyed her, the heartbreaking inability to bear children, and parents whose glamorous Hollywood marriage hid turmoil, addiction, and betrayal. Yet somehow, through the wreckage, Jamie Lee Curtis found redemption, 27 years sober, an Oscar winner at 64, a fierce advocate, a devoted mother. But behind the infectious laugh and natural beauty lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, of a woman who survived Hollywood's darkest corridors to emerge as proof that you can rebuild yourself from ashes. If Jamie Lee Curtis has ever made you scream, laugh, or cry, hit like as tribute to her courage. This is the story of a woman born into Hollywood's brightest spotlight, who spent decades fighting demons in the shadows, only to step back into the light, stronger, wiser, and finally free. November 22, 1958. Santa Monica, California. A baby girl was born into what should have been a fairy tale. Her parents, Tony Curtis and Jana Lee, two of Hollywood's most beautiful stars. Her mother had just starred in Psycho, the most famous shower scene in cinema history. Her father, the heartthrob of a generation. But Jamie Lee Curtis's birth was marked not by celebration, but by the beginning of an unraveling. She had an older sister, Kelly, born 2 years earlier. The Curtis household glittered on the outside. Inside, it was crumbling. When Jamie Lee was just 3 years old, in 1962, her parents divorced. The reason was devastating. Tony Curtis left Jana Lee for a 17-year-old actress named Christine Kaufman. Suddenly, the fairy tale shattered. Jamie Lee rarely saw her father after that. She lived with her mother and stepfather, Robert Brandt, in a household trying to heal from public humiliation. What few people know is that Tony Curtis struggled with his own demons: alcohol, cocaine, heroin. The man who looked perfect on screen was drowning. Jamie Lee attended multiple high schools, struggling academically and emotionally. Westlake School in Los Angeles, Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut. She felt lost, displaced, the daughter of famous parents, but without a stable foundation. Her childhood was marked not by Hollywood parties, but by the absence of a father and the shadow of her parents' very public heartbreak. She later said, "My parents' divorce profoundly affected me. I spent my childhood trying to understand why he left. The beginning was not glamorous, but fractured, a girl searching for belonging in a world that only saw her last name." Then came 1978. Jamie Lee Curtis was 19 years old, working as a production assistant, when she got the call that would change everything. Director John Carpenter was casting a low-budget horror film called Halloween. The producer, Deborah Hill, specifically wanted Jamie Lee because her mother, Jana Lee, had been the scream queen of Psycho. Legacy casting. But Jamie Lee would make it her own. Filming took just 21 days. The budget, $300,000. Jamie Lee played Laurie Strode, a babysitter stalked by the masked killer Michael Myers. She was paid $8,000. For her film debut, the movie was released on October 25, 1978. Halloween became a phenomenon, grossing $70 million worldwide, making it one of the most profitable independent films ever made overnight. Jamie Lee Curtis became America's scream queen, but she didn't want to be typecast. She fought for diversity. By 1983, she starred in Trading Places opposite Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, proving she could do comedy. The film grossed $90 million. Then came 1994's True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a massive action comedy that earned $378 million worldwide. Jamie Lee was paid $2 million for that role. She was now a bankable star. Through the 1980s and 1990s, she balanced blockbusters with smaller, meaningful films. A Fish Called Wanda, My Girl, Freaky Friday. By 2002, she'd been in Hollywood for over 2 decades, working constantly, always evolving. But what the cameras didn't see was the price she was paying behind closed doors. 1989. Jamie Lee Curtis, 31 years old, underwent a routine plastic surgery procedure. After the surgery, doctors prescribed her Vicodin for the pain. That prescription changed her life. It is heartbreaking when a single pill becomes a decade-long nightmare. Jamie Lee became addicted to opioids, not because she was weak, but because addiction doesn't discriminate. For 10 years, she hid it. From Hollywood, from her friends, from her family. She stole pills. She lied. She lived a double life, the smiling actress on screen, the desperate addict in private. I was a functioning addict, she later confessed. Nobody knew, but addiction ran in her blood. Her father, Tony Curtis, had been battling his own addiction to cocaine and heroin for decades. Jamie Lee even admitted she once did cocaine with him, a moment she described with both heartbreak and understanding. Then came 1994, July 1994. To be exact, Jamie Lee's younger half-brother, Nicholas Curtis, was found dead in Provincetown, Massachusetts. He was 23 years old. Cause of death, heroin overdose. Nicholas had been clean. He relapsed once. That one time killed him. The phone call came in the middle of the day. Another life extinguished. Another family member lost to the same demon Jamie Lee was secretly fighting. She attended his funeral, mourning publicly while hiding her own addiction privately. He was one of millions whose lives have been extinguished because of addiction. She said years later, her voice breaking, the world saw her grief, but not her terror, the knowledge that she could be next. By 1998, Jamie Lee had also been struggling with another devastating loss, the inability to have biological children. She and her husband, Christopher Guest, whom she married in 1984, wanted a family desperately, but infertility shattered that dream. Month after month of hoping, treatments that failed, the quiet grief of a woman whose body wouldn't cooperate. Adoption was the only way for us to have a family, she said. In 1986, they adopted their first daughter, Annie. In 1996, they adopted their second daughter, Ruby. Jamie Lee poured her love into motherhood, but the pain of infertility lingered. Another loss, another thing her body took from her. Then came the moment that saved her life. December 1998. Jamie Lee Curtis, 40 years old, read an article about Vicodin addiction in a magazine. Every word described her. She looked at the pills in her hand. She thought of her brother Nicholas, dead at 23. She thought of her father, still using. She thought of her daughters. On February 3, 1999, Jamie Lee Curtis attended her first recovery meeting. She walked into a room full of strangers and said the words that would change everything. "My name is Jamie Lee, and I'm an addict." She described it as the hardest and most important moment of her life. Getting sober meant facing everything she'd been numbing. The pain of her brother's death, her father's absence, her childhood trauma, her infertility. It meant showing up to life without armor. Her family supported her. Christopher stood by her. Her daughters gave her purpose. And slowly, day by day, Jamie Lee Curtis rebuilt herself. In 2004, another loss, October 3, 2000. Her mother, Jana Lee, died at 77 after a battle with vasculitis. Jamie Lee had lost the parent who raised her, who held the family together after the divorce. 6 years later, in September 2010, her father Tony Curtis died at 85. Their relationship had been complicated, painful, but she mourned him, not just the father he wasn't, but the broken man he was. By the time both her parents were gone, Jamie Lee had been sober for over a decade. She faced their deaths clear-eyed and present, not numb, but alive. At 67, Jamie Lee Curtis is living proof that redemption is real. 7 years sober as of February 2025. In March 2023, at 64 years old, she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Deirdre Bauberter in Everything Everywhere All at Once. The film won 7 Oscars that night, including Best Picture. Standing on that stage, Jamie Lee wept as she thanked her late parents. "I know it looks like I am standing up here by myself, But I am not. I am hundreds of people. She dedicated the award to the crew, to her castmates, and to every person who supported her journey, that it was her first Oscar. After 45 years in Hollywood, her net worth, combined with her husband Christopher Guest, is $60 million, but she measures wealth differently now. She lives in Los Angeles in the home she and Christopher purchased in the 1990s. Now worth nearly $4 million. Her daughter Ruby came out as transgender in 2021. And Jamie Lee became a fierce advocate for LGBTQ+ rights, saying, "I support her completely and I am proud to be her mother." She's an activist against cosmetic surgery and unrealistic beauty standards. Having sworn off procedures years ago, generations of women have been disfigured by this obsession. She said in 20 to 5. Jamie Lee recently starred in Ella McKay, a political comedy that premiered in December 2025, a role she calls one of the most meaningful of her career. She also appeared in The Bear, Freakier Friday, and has multiple projects in development, but her real work is advocacy. She supports children affected by AIDS Foundation, Habitat for Humanity, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and a place called Home. In January 2025, after the Los Angeles wildfires, she and her family donated $1 million from their foundation to wildfire relief. She speaks openly about her sobriety, hoping to save others from the fate of her brother Nicholas. Every February 3rd, she posts on social media a photo, a reflection, gratitude for another year clean. Her daily life is simple: coffee with Christopher, calls with her daughters Annie, now 40, and Ruby, now 30, writing, acting, living. She's written 13 children's books, including Today I Feel Silly and Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born. Inspired by her daughter's adoption. At 67, Jamie Lee Curtis is not trying to look younger or be something she's not. She shows her wrinkles, her gray hair, her years. "I've earned every single one," she says. At 67, Jamie Lee Curtis stands as proof that trauma doesn't have to define you. From Santa Monica to Hollywood, from $8,000 to an Oscar, from addiction to 27 years sober, from a fractured childhood to a fierce advocate for authenticity. She lost her brother Nicholas to the same demon she defeated. She lost both parents. She lost the dream of biological children, but she gained something more valuable, herself. Not because she was lucky, not because it was easy, but because she chose every single day to show up, to be honest, to fight. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Jamie Lee Curtis's courage reminded you that redemption still exists, that it's never too late to rebuild, that behind every scream queen is a woman who survived her own horror story and came out the other side stronger, raw, and beautifully, powerfully human.